They hunted the dragon who raised a human child, until the child roared back. Before we dive into this story, drop a quick hi in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. It really helps support the channel. The world had never been kind to dragons, but it had been even crueler to abandoned human infants. The massive silhouette of Valorith soared through the clouded night sky, his scales gleaming under the silver moonlight as he returned to his mountain den. Valorith had lived for over 7 centuries, watching empires rise and crumble, kings come and go, and countless dragon hunters attempt to claim his head. His kind had dwindled over the centuries, hunted to near extinction by humans who feared their power or coveted their treasure. Once numbering in the thousands, dragons were now reduced to mere dozens scattered across the world's most remote regions. On this night, Valorith had ventured to the outskirts of the human kingdom of Eldaria for his monthly hunt. The kingdom had expanded in recent decades, encroaching upon the wilderness he called home. His massive form glided silently above a small village nestled at the foot of the mountains. The humans below remained oblivious to his presence, their feeble eyes unable to detect his shadow against the night sky. As he prepared to return to his den, a peculiar sound caught his attention. His keen hearing detected a faint cry coming from the forest's edge. Curious, he descended, landing with surprising grace for a creature of his size. The massive dragon followed the sound until he discovered its source, a small bundle wrapped in tattered cloth, abandoned beneath an ancient oak tree. Valorith's golden eyes narrowed as he examined the bundle. Inside was a human infant, no more than a few days old, its tiny face red from crying. The dragon's first instinct was to leave it be. Human affairs were not his concern, and he had learned long ago that involvement with their kind brought nothing but trouble. And yet, something gave him pause. Perhaps it was the child's helplessness, or maybe it was the dragon's own solitude after centuries of watching his kind slowly disappear. Whatever the reason, Valorith found himself gently lifting the bundle with his massive claws. "What strange fate brings you here, little one?" he rumbled, his voice like distant thunder. The infant's cries ceased at the sound, tiny eyes opening to stare fearlessly at the dragon. No human had ever looked upon Valorith without terror, yet this child showed no fear. Their eyes met, ancient gold meeting innocent blue, and in that moment, a bond formed that would change both their lives forever. 20 years passed in the blink of an eye for a being as old as Valorith. For Ethan Cole, the human child who grew up under the dragon's care, those years contained a lifetime of learning and wonder. Their life together had not been easy. At first, Valorith had struggled to care for such a fragile creature. He had flown great distances to observe human mothers with their young, learning what the child needed to survive. He had raided farms for goat's milk, stolen clothes from washing lines, and even ventured into abandoned human dwellings to gather supplies. As Ethan grew, Valorith taught him everything he knew about the world, the names of stars, the language of beasts, the secrets of the ancient earth, and the forgotten magic that still lingered in hidden corners of the world. Ethan grew into a strong young man with a wild spirit. His body was human, but his heart and mind had been shaped by a dragon. He moved through the forest with the stealth of a predator, climbed the highest peaks without fear, and spoke the ancient dragon tongue as fluently as human language. His dark hair hung long and untamed around a face weathered by the elements, and his blue eyes held a wisdom beyond his years. "Why do humans hunt dragons?" Ethan asked one evening as they sat at the mouth of their cave home, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant hues of orange and purple. Valorith's massive head turned toward his adopted son. "Fear and greed," he replied, smoke curling from his nostrils. "They fear what they cannot control, and they covet what they do not have." "But you've never harmed anyone," Ethan protested. The dragon made a sound that might have been a chuckle. "I have lived for 7 centuries, my son. Not all of those years were spent in peaceful seclusion." Ethan leaned against the warm scales of Valorith's side. "Tell me again about the old days, when dragons ruled the skies." Valorith's golden eyes grew distant with memory. Once, we numbered in the thousands. Our councils shaped the fate of nations, and even the mightiest kings sought our wisdom. We were guardians of knowledge and magic, keepers of balance between the elemental forces of the world. The dragon sighed, a gust of warm air that rustled the trees below. But humans multiplied, their ambition grew, and they began to see us as obstacles to their dominion over the earth. Are there others like you still alive? Few, Valorith admitted. Perhaps a dozen scattered across the world. We no longer gather, no longer mate. Our time is ending. A comfortable silence fell between them as darkness crept over the mountains. Below, in the distant valley, the lights of human settlements twinkled like earthbound stars. Tomorrow I will show you something important, Valorith said finally. Something I should have shown you years ago. The next morning, Valorith led Ethan deeper into the mountain than they had ever ventured before. The natural tunnel system widened into a vast cavern illuminated by strange, glowing crystals embedded in the walls. At the center of the chamber stood a circular pool of water, so still it resembled a mirror of obsidian. This is the Seeing Pool, Valorith explained. One of the last sources of dragon magic left in this world. Ethan approached the pool cautiously. What does it do? It shows truth. Past, present, sometimes glimpses of possible futures. The dragon moved to stand beside the young man. It is time you learned of your origins. At Valorith's gentle nudge, Ethan knelt by the pool's edge. The dragon exhaled softly over the water's surface, and the dark mirror began to swirl with mist and light. Images formed in the pool, a young woman with Ethan's same blue eyes, holding a newborn child, a man in noble clothing arguing furiously, the woman fleeing in the night, her tearful face as she placed the bundle beneath an oak tree, and finally, her body, broken at the bottom of a cliff, whether by accident or intent, the pool did not reveal. Your mother was Lady Elaine of House Blackwood, Valorith said softly. She was unmarried when she bore you. Your father was a married nobleman who denied your existence. When her family discovered her pregnancy, she fled to protect you from their wrath. Ethan stared at the pool in stunned silence as the images faded. She died because of me. She died because of cruelty and injustice, Valorith corrected. You were innocent. The pool swirled again, showing new images. A man with graying hair and cold eyes, wearing a crown. A younger man with the same cruel expression, examining maps of the mountain region, soldiers marching, and dragon hunters preparing their weapons. King Aldrich of Eldaria, Valorith explained, and his son, Prince Gareth. They have expanded their kingdom's borders for years, clearing forests and mountains of what they call monsters. Now they have set their sights on this range. Ethan's hands clenched into fists. They're coming for you. They have already begun. Yesterday, while hunting, I spotted their scouts in the foothills. The dragon's voice was calm, accepting. I have evaded hunters for centuries, but I grow old, and they grow more numerous and clever with each generation. We'll leave, Ethan said immediately. Find a new home, somewhere more remote. Valorith shook his massive head. There are no more remote places, my son. Humans have spread to every corner of the world. And he hesitated. I am too old for another long journey. This mountain has been my home for 3 centuries. I will not abandon it now. Then we'll fight, Ethan insisted, rising to his feet. I'll defend you as you defended me all these years. The dragon regarded his human son with something like pride mixed with sorrow. You have the heart of a dragon in a human body, Ethan Cole. But this is not your battle. Everything I am, I owe to you, Ethan said fiercely. You saved me, raised me, taught me. Of course this is my battle. Valorith was silent for a long moment. Perhaps there is another way, he said finally. One that does not end in bloodshed. For the next week, Ethan and Valorith prepared for the coming conflict. The dragon instructed Ethan in ancient dragon lore and magic that no human had learned in millennia. He taught him the secret names of wind and fire, the spells of protection and concealment, and the sacred oaths that bound dragons to their word. Ethan absorbed everything eagerly, though some of the magic was difficult for his human form to channel. At night, exhausted from their training, he dreamed of flying alongside Valorith, soaring through clouds and breathing fire upon their enemies. On the 8th day, their preparation was interrupted by the distant sound of horns echoing through the mountain passes. "They are here," Valorith said, raising his massive head from where he had been resting. Ethan rushed to the cave entrance and looked down at the valley below. Even from this distance, he could see the glint of armor and weapons as hundreds of soldiers established a base camp. Interspersed among the regular troops were smaller groups dressed in distinctive black leather, the elite dragon hunters of Eldaria, renowned for their skill and cruelty. "There are so many," Ethan whispered. "More than I expected," Valorith agreed, joining him at the cave mouth. "They must truly fear me to send such a force." Ethan turned to his adoptive father, determination hardening his features. "I'll go down and speak with them. Perhaps I can convince them you're not a threat." The dragon's golden eyes softened. "Oh, my son, you still do not fully understand human nature. They will not listen to reason when fear and greed guide their actions." "I have to try," Ethan insisted. "I'm one of them, at least in appearance. They might listen to me." Valorith was silent for a long moment before nodding slowly. "Very well. But remember everything I have taught you, and be wary. The most dangerous predator in this world walks on 2 legs and speaks with a forked tongue." Ethan prepared for his descent to the human camp. He dressed in the simplest clothes he owned, a rough-spun tunic and leather breeches, hoping to appear as non-threatening as possible. At Valorith's insistence, he also carried a small pouch containing dragon scales and a vial of the dragon's blood freely given, powerful magical components that might aid him if things went awry. "Return before nightfall," Valorith instructed as Ethan prepared to leave. "If you do not, I will come looking for you, and that will not end peacefully." Ethan nodded, then impulsively threw his arms around the dragon's massive neck in a fierce embrace. "I won't fail you," he promised. The descent from the mountain was familiar to Ethan, who had spent his life exploring every crevice and path of his home. He moved with the sure-footedness of a mountain goat, using routes invisible to those unfamiliar with the terrain. By midday, he had reached the edge of the forest that separated the mountains from the valley where the royal army had established their camp. From the cover of the trees, Ethan observed the camp's activity. Soldiers patrolled the perimeter while others erected tents and prepared fortifications. At the center stood a large pavilion adorned with the royal standard of Eldaria, a golden crown above a silver sword on a field of blue. Taking a deep breath, Ethan stepped from the forest's edge and walked openly toward the camp. He had gone only a few paces when shouts erupted, and within moments, he found himself surrounded by armed soldiers with arrows nocked and swords drawn. "Halt! Identify yourself," demanded a captain, his hand on his sword hilt. Ethan raised his hand slowly. "My name is Ethan Cole. I live in these mountains, and I've come to speak with whoever leads this expedition." The soldiers exchanged confused glances. Clearly, they hadn't expected to encounter a human dwelling in dragon territory. "Search him," the captain ordered. Rough hands patted Ethan down, discovering the pouch of dragon scales and blood. "Dragon parts," one soldier exclaimed, holding up the pouch. "He's a hunter." The captain's demeanor changed instantly. "Or a dragon worshipper," he said with disgust. "Either way, the prince will want to speak with him. Bind his hands." Despite his instinct to resist, Ethan allowed them to tie his wrists with rope. He needed to reach their leader, and fighting now would only undermine his purpose. The soldiers escorted him through the camp, where curious eyes followed his progress. Many of the men had clearly never seen someone like him before, a human who moved with a predator's grace and whose wild appearance spoke of a life far removed from civilization. They brought him to the royal pavilion and announced his presence. After a brief wait, Ethan was ushered inside, where Prince Gareth sat at a table covered with maps and reports, surrounded by advisors and elite dragon hunters. The prince was younger than Ethan had expected, perhaps only a few years older than himself. He had sharp features, calculating eyes, and an air of cold authority that reminded Ethan of the predatory birds that sometimes circled the mountain peaks. "So," Prince Gareth said, studying Ethan with undisguised curiosity, "you're the mountain man my scouts reported. They thought you might be a hermit or a madman." His eyes narrowed. "But you're something else entirely, aren't you?" Ethan met the prince's gaze steadily. "I've come to ask why you bring an army to peaceful mountains." A ripple of surprise ran through the assembled advisors at his boldness. The prince leaned back in his chair. "Peaceful? These mountains harbor the last great dragon of Eldaria, a monster that has terrorized our kingdom for centuries." "Valarith has harmed no one in living memory," Ethan countered. "He keeps to himself and desires only to be left in peace." Silence fell over the pavilion. The prince's eyebrows rose slowly. "Valarith," he repeated, "you know the beast's name? And you speak of it as if—" His eyes widened with sudden understanding. "By the gods, you live with it, don't you?" Before Ethan could respond, one of the dragon hunters stepped forward, an older man with a scarred face and cold eyes. "My prince, this changes everything. This boy could be invaluable to us. He knows the dragon's habits, its lair. With his help, we could end this hunt before it truly begins." Prince Gareth studied Ethan with renewed interest. "What say you, mountain man? Help us slay this beast, and you'll be richly rewarded. Gold, land, a place at court, name your price." Ethan's expression hardened. "I didn't come to help you kill him. I came to convince you to leave these mountains in peace." The prince laughed, a short, sharp sound devoid of humor. "You misunderstand your position. You're not here to negotiate." He gestured to the guards. "Secure him. He'll lead us to the dragon's lair tomorrow at dawn, willingly or otherwise." As the guards seized his arms, Ethan felt a surge of anger and power rising within him. The dragon magic Valarith had taught him stirred in his blood, responding to his emotions. With a word in the ancient dragon tongue, the ropes binding his wrists burst into flame and fell away as ash. The guards recoiled in shock, and the dragon hunters reached for their weapons. "I am not your enemy," Ethan said, his voice carrying an unnatural resonance that silenced the pavilion. "But I will not help you murder the one who raised me as his own. Return to your kingdom and leave these mountains, or face consequences beyond your imagining." For a moment, Prince Gareth seemed taken aback by this display. Then his face hardened with resolve. "Seize him," he commanded. "And this time, use chains." Ethan could have fought them. The dragon magic flowing through him would have given him a chance against even these trained soldiers. But violence now would only confirm their belief that dragons and those associated with them were monsters to be destroyed. Instead, he allowed them to chain his wrists and ankles with heavy iron manacles. "You're making a terrible mistake," he warned as they dragged him from the pavilion. The prince's voice followed him out. "No, boy. The mistake was yours when you chose to side with a monster over your own kind." They took him to a sturdy cage mounted on a wagon, clearly designed to transport dangerous beasts or prisoners. As they locked him inside, the scarred dragon hunter approached, regarding Ethan with cold calculation. "I've hunted dragons across 3 kingdoms," he said, "killed 17 of the beasts. But never have I encountered a human raised by one." He leaned closer to the bars. "Tell me, boy, did it teach you its magic?" "Its secrets." Ethan remained silent, staring back defiantly. The hunter smiled, revealing teeth filed to points, an unsettling affectation common among his kind. "No matter. By this time tomorrow, your dragon will be dead, and you'll be on your way to the capital to amuse the king with your wild ways and strange abilities." As the hunter walked away, Ethan closed his eyes and reached out with his mind, just as Valarith had taught him. Dragons could communicate across great distances through a form of mental connection, a skill few humans could master. But Ethan was no ordinary human. "Valarith," he called silently. "They've captured me. They plan to attack at dawn. Be ready." He felt no response, but he knew his warning had been received. Now all he could do was wait and look for an opportunity to escape. Night fell over the camp, and Ethan watched as the soldiers prepared for the coming battle. Weapons were sharpened, armor checked, and special equipment assembled. Massive ballistas designed to pierce dragon scales, nets woven with enchanted metal to entangle wings, and arrows tipped with poison known to be deadly to dragons. The sight filled Ethan with dread and determination. He needed to escape before dawn. Closing his eyes, he focused on the iron manacles binding his wrists. Iron resisted magic. That was why they had used it instead of rope. But Valorith had taught him that even iron could be persuaded if one knew its true nature. Softly, so the nearby guards wouldn't hear, Ethan began to whisper the true name of iron in the dragon tongue. The manacles grew warm against his skin as he repeated the name, calling to the metal's essence, asking it to remember when it was molten and free. Hours passed as Ethan worked his magic patiently, conserving his strength and concentrating his will. Near midnight, when the camp had grown quieter and many of the soldiers had retired to their tents, he felt the metal begin to soften. With a final whispered word, the manacles parted like wax, allowing him to slip his hands free. The ankle chains followed moments later. Now came the harder part, escaping the cage and the camp without raising an alarm. Ethan studied his surroundings carefully. 2 guards stood nearby, but their attention was focused on a dice game they were playing to pass the time. Beyond them, the camp was settling for the night, with fewer soldiers moving about. Drawing on another dragon teaching, Ethan whispered the name of Shadow, calling darkness to wrap around him like a cloak. The spell wouldn't make him invisible, but in the night, it would make him much harder to see, little more than a moving shadow among shadows. When both guards looked down at their game, Ethan worked on the cage lock, using a combination of the subtle magic Valorith had taught him and the mechanical skills he had learned from observing the intricate workings of nature. The lock clicked open softly, and Ethan eased the door open just enough to slip through. Moving with the silence of a hunting cat, he slipped from the cage and into the deeper shadows between tents. He froze when one of the guards looked up, but the man's eyes passed over him without recognition, and he returned to his game. Ethan made his way through the camp, staying in shadows and moving only when attention was directed elsewhere. He had nearly reached the perimeter when a commotion arose from the direction of his cage. They had discovered his escape. Horns blared, and torches flared to life as soldiers began to search the camp. Abandoning stealth for speed, Ethan broke into a run, heading for the forest edge. Shouts followed him as he was spotted, and arrows whistled past his head. He reached the tree-line just as mounted soldiers began to pursue. The forest was his advantage. He knew these woods intimately, while the soldiers and their horses would struggle with the dense undergrowth and uneven terrain. Ethan ran deeper into the forest, using every trick he had learned from a lifetime in the wilderness. He crossed streams to mask his scent, doubled back along his own trail to confuse trackers, and moved through the canopy when possible, leaping from branch to branch like the monkeys Valorith had described from distant lands. By the time false dawn lightened the eastern sky, Ethan had lost his pursuers and was making his way up the familiar mountain paths toward home. But his heart was heavy with the knowledge that the hunters would not give up so easily. Now that they knew a dragon sympathizer had escaped to warn their prey, they would accelerate their plans. As the first true rays of sunlight crested the horizon, Ethan reached a high ridge that gave him a clear view of both the cave entrance far above and the valley below. What he saw made his blood run cold. The army was already on the move, advancing up the mountain in formation. At their center, teams of men hauled the disassembled parts of the massive ballistas, ready to be reassembled when they reached a suitable firing position. The dragon hunters led the way, their black leather armor stark against the green and gray of the mountainside. "No," Ethan whispered. "They're too soon." He had to reach Valorith before they did. Pushing his exhausted body to its limits, Ethan scrambled up the steepest paths, taking dangerous shortcuts up sheer cliff faces that no ordinary human would attempt. Behind him, The army advanced methodically, following the main paths up the mountain. They were slower but relentless, their greater numbers allowing them to maintain a steady pace without exhaustion. The sun had fully risen by the time Ethan reached the cave entrance, his body covered in sweat and dirt, his hands bloodied from the climb. "Valorith," he called, rushing inside. "They're coming. We need to." He stopped short. The cave was empty. Ethan's heart sank as he realized what had happened. Valorith had received his mental warning and had chosen to meet the threat away from their home. The dragon was out there somewhere, facing an army alone. A distant roar confirmed his fears, followed by the faint sounds of shouting. The battle had begun. Ethan rushed back to the cave entrance and scanned the mountainside desperately. At first, he saw nothing. Then a movement caught his eye, a massive shadow passing over the forest below, followed by a burst of flame that set a section of trees ablaze. Valorith was engaging the army, using hit-and-run tactics to divide their forces and prevent them from setting up their dragon-killing weapons. It was a sound strategy, but against such numbers, it was only a matter of time before the dragon tired or made a mistake. Ethan knew he had to help, but what could one human do against an army? His gaze fell upon the deepest part of the cave, where the tunnel led to the seeing pool and Valorith's most precious treasures. An idea formed in his mind, desperate, dangerous, and possibly suicidal, but it might be their only chance. Racing back into the cave, Ethan followed the tunnel to the chamber of the seeing pool. Beyond it lay another chamber, one Valorith had shown him but warned him never to enter without the dragon's presence, the dragon's hoard. Unlike the tales humans told of dragons hoarding gold and jewels, Valorith's treasure was knowledge and magic. The chamber contained ancient scrolls, artifacts from lost civilizations, and crystals that stored magical energy collected over centuries. At the center of the chamber stood a pedestal of black stone, upon which rested a crystal orb the size of Ethan's head. The dragon's heart, Valorith had called it, one of the last great magical artifacts created during the height of dragon civilization. "Forgive me, Father," Ethan whispered as he approached the pedestal, "but I need your greatest power now." Valorith had told him that the heart contained magic too powerful for a human body to channel, that using it would likely kill any mortal who attempted to tap its power. But Ethan was no ordinary human. He had been raised by a dragon, taught dragon magic, and had dragon blood flowing through his veins, not by birth, but by the blood bond ritual Valorith had performed when Ethan was 16, making him truly the dragon's son in all ways that mattered. Ethan placed his hands on the crystal orb and felt it warm beneath his touch. Energy thrummed through the artifact, responding to his presence. "Heart of the dragon, blood of my blood," Ethan intoned in the dragon tongue, reciting words Valorith had once mentioned in passing. "I call upon your power in this hour of need." The orb began to glow with an inner light, pulsing like a massive heartbeat. Energy flowed up Ethan's arms, spreading throughout his body. Pain followed, intense, burning pain that threatened to overwhelm his consciousness. Ethan gritted his teeth and endured. He had one chance to save Valorith, and he would not waste it. As the magic of the dragon's heart flowed into him, Ethan felt his body changing. His skin hardened, taking on a faint, scale-like quality. His eyes burned as his vision sharpened beyond human limits. His muscles strengthened, bones densified, and something new unfurled in his mind, a connection to elemental forces no human was meant to touch. When the transformation was complete, Ethan stood taller, stronger, his appearance still human but subtly altered. His eyes glowed with the same golden light as Valorith's, and when he spoke, his voice carried the same resonant power. "Now," he said, flexing hands that ended in claw-like nails, "I will show them what happens when they hunt my family." With newfound speed and strength, Ethan raced back through the cave and out onto the mountainside. The battle below had intensified. Valorith was airborne, breathing fire upon the advancing soldiers while avoiding volleys of arrows and spears. But Ethan could see that the dragon was tiring, his movements less fluid than usual, his flame less intense. Worse, the dragon hunters had managed to assemble one of their ballistas on a ridge and were preparing to fire. If one of those massive bolts struck Valorith in a vulnerable spot, it could be fatal. Ethan's enhanced vision spotted Prince Gareth directing the operation, pointing to Valorith's flight path and giving orders to the ballista crew. Without hesitation, Ethan began to descend the mountain, moving faster than any human could safely travel. He leaped from outcropping to outcropping, his strengthened body absorbing impacts that would have shattered ordinary bones. As he neared the ballista position, he called upon the elemental magic now flowing through his veins. Raising his hands toward the sky, he spoke the true name of lightning in the dragon tongue. The clear morning sky darkened suddenly as clouds formed from nowhere, swirling with unnatural speed. A bolt of lightning split the heavens, striking the ballista with unerring precision. The weapon exploded in a shower of splinters and metal fragments, sending the crew flying. Prince Gareth and his guards looked up in shock as Ethan landed on their ridge, his body crackling with residual electricity, his eyes glowing with golden fire. "I warned you," Ethan said, his voice carrying the same resonant power as Valorith's. "I warned you to leave these mountains." The prince drew his sword. "What manner of demon are you?" he demanded, though Ethan could hear the fear beneath his bravado. "I am no demon," Ethan replied. "I am a dragon's son." With that, he inhaled deeply and felt a new power stirring in his chest. When he exhaled, a stream of fire erupted from his mouth, smaller than Valorith's mighty flame, but terrifying to the humans before him. The guards fled in panic, but Prince Gareth held his ground, raising his shield to block the flames. When the fire dissipated, he charged forward with his sword. Ethan sidestepped the attack with inhuman speed and struck the prince with an open palm, sending him flying backward to land hard against a boulder. The prince struggled to rise, his armor dented from the impact. "Stop this madness," Ethan demanded. "Call off your men before more blood is shed." "Never," Gareth spat, blood trickling from his mouth. "That monster has plagued our kingdom for generations. My father has sworn to see it dead, and so have I." "Then you leave me no choice," Ethan said grimly. He turned his attention to the battle below, where Valorith was still fighting against overwhelming odds. Raising his hands to the sky once more, Ethan called upon the most powerful magic the dragon's heart had granted him. "Hear me, elements of earth and sky," he intoned in the dragon tongue. "I am blood of the dragon, heir to ancient power. Lend me your strength to protect my kin." The ground began to tremble beneath their feet. Across the mountainside, soldiers lost their footing as the earth shook with increasing violence. Trees swayed, rocks tumbled down slopes, and fissures opened in the ground. Above, the sky darkened further as storm clouds gathered with unnatural speed. Lightning forked across the heavens, striking among the army's ranks with devastating precision. Thunder boomed so loudly it seemed to shake the very air. Prince Gareth watched in horror as his carefully planned assault dissolved into chaos. "What have you done?" he cried. Ethan didn't answer. His attention was focused on maintaining control of the elemental forces he had unleashed. Such power was not meant for human control, and he could feel it threatening to slip beyond his grasp. In the midst of the chaos, Valorith spotted Ethan on the ridge. The dragon's golden eyes widened in recognition and alarm. With powerful wing beats, he soared toward his adopted son. "Ethan," Valorith's voice boomed over the din of battle. "Release the magic. It will destroy you." But Ethan couldn't stop, not yet. The army was retreating, but not fast enough. The dragon hunters, more determined than regular soldiers, still fought on, launching arrows and spears at Valorith even as they struggled to maintain their footing on the shaking ground. "Not until you're safe," Ethan gasped, blood beginning to trickle from his nose and ears as the strain of channeling such power took its toll on his human body. Valorith landed beside him with earth-shaking force, his massive wings creating a gust that nearly knocked Prince Gareth off his feet again. My son, the dragon said, more gently now. You've done enough. Let go. Looking into Valorith's ancient eyes, Ethan saw concern, pride, and love. Slowly, he nodded and began to release his hold on the elemental magic. As the earth's trembling subsided and the storm clouds began to disperse, Ethan's strength went with them. He collapsed, caught only by Valorith's quick movement to place his wing beneath the falling young man. Prince Gareth, seeing an opportunity, raised his sword again and charged toward the distracted dragon. Without hesitation, Valorith's tail lashed out, striking the prince with enough force to send him skidding across the rocky ground. This time, the prince did not rise. With the immediate threat neutralized, Valorith turned his full attention to Ethan. The young man lay pale and still upon the dragon's wing, blood trickling from his nose, ears, and the corners of his eyes. "Foolish, brave child," Valorith rumbled, his voice thick with emotion. "What have you done to yourself?" Ethan's eyes fluttered open, the golden glow fading to reveal his natural blue. "Saved you," he whispered. "As you saved me." Below them, what remained of the army continued its retreat. The dragon hunters, seeing their prince defeated and their quarry still very much alive and angry, had wisely chosen to withdraw as well. "The dragon's heart," Valorith said, understanding dawning in his ancient eyes. "You used it." Ethan nodded weakly. "Had to. They were going to kill you." "The heart is not meant for human bodies," Valorith said gravely, "even one raised by dragons." Ethan tried to smile, though the effort clearly cost him. "I'm not entirely human anymore. The blood bond, remember?" With infinite gentleness, Valorith gathered Ethan into his massive claws and spread his wings. "Hold on, my son. I will take you home." As they soared above the retreating army, Ethan caught a glimpse of Prince Gareth being carried away on a stretcher, broken but alive. Their eyes met briefly across the distance, human to human, yet worlds apart in understanding. By the time they reached their cave, Ethan's condition had worsened. His breathing came in shallow gasps, and his skin burned with unnatural heat. The dragon's heart had granted him temporary power beyond mortal limits, but the price was proving steep. Valorith placed him gently on his bed of furs and examined him with growing concern. "I should never have shown you the heart," the dragon rumbled. "Not your fault," Ethan whispered. "My choice." The dragon's ancient eyes narrowed with determination. "There is one thing that might save you, but it requires a sacrifice." "No," Ethan protested weakly, guessing his intention. "Don't give up anything for me." "Hush, child." Valorith's voice was gentle but firm. 7 centuries I have lived. I have seen empires rise and fall, watched stars die and be born. You have given me purpose these past 20 years that I had thought lost forever. The dragon lowered his massive head until his eye was level with Ethan's face. "My time grows short regardless. Let me do this one last thing for my son." Without waiting for a response, Valorith moved deeper into the cave, returning moments later with the dragon's heart cradled carefully in his claws. The crystal orb pulsed with power, its glow illuminating the cave in rhythmic waves. "The heart contains the collective magic and wisdom of dragonkind," Valorith explained. "It was created in ancient times as a repository, should our race ever face extinction." His voice grew solemn. "I am one of the last. When I die, my essence will join with the heart, as those before me have done." Understanding dawned on Ethan's pale face. "But you're not dead yet." "No," the dragon agreed. "But I can choose to surrender my remaining years, to pour my life force into the heart now, rather than upon my death." He placed the orb beside Ethan. "In doing so, I can direct its power to heal you, to complete what the blood bond began." Ethan struggled to sit up. "I won't let you die for me." "Not die, my son. Transform." Valorith's voice took on a mysterious quality. "Dragons do not truly die as humans understand death. Our essence, our knowledge, our magic, it continues within the heart, and through it, within you." Before Ethan could protest further, Valorith began to chant in the ancient dragon tongue, words so old they predated human language. The dragon's heart responded, its pulsing glow intensifying until it bathed the entire cave in golden light. As the chant continued, Valorith's physical form began to change. His solid body grew translucent, scales shimmering like stars as his essence separated from material form. The process appeared painful, but the dragon's eyes remained fixed on Ethan, filled with determination and love. "Valorith, please," Ethan begged, tears streaming down his face. "There must be another way." The dragon's voice came as if from a great distance. "This is not an end, but a beginning. You will understand soon." With those words, Valorith's physical form dissolved entirely into golden light that flowed into the dragon's heart. The orb blazed with blinding intensity, forcing Ethan to shield his eyes. When he could see again, Ethan found himself alone in the cave, the dragon's heart glowing softly beside him. Where Valorith had stood was nothing but empty air. "No," Ethan cried, his voice breaking with grief. "Come back." Only silence answered him. Overwhelmed by loss and pain, Ethan curled around the dragon's heart, the last remnant of his adoptive father. Exhaustion claimed him, and he fell into a deep, healing sleep. When Ethan awoke, 3 days had passed, but he felt transformed. The damage from channeling the dragon's heart had healed, but more than that, he felt different, stronger, more connected to the world around him. His senses had sharpened beyond even what the temporary transformation had granted him. Sitting up, he noticed that his skin now bore faint patterns resembling scales, visible only when the light struck at certain angles. His eyes, when he checked his reflection in a polished metal plate, had changed from blue to gold with vertical pupils, dragon's eyes in a human face. The dragon's heart rested beside him, its glow subdued but constant. As Ethan reached for it, he felt Valorith's presence, not as a distinct consciousness, but as wisdom and love woven into the fabric of the artifact. "You're still here," he whispered, tears welling in his strange new eyes. A sense of affirmation filled him, wordless but unmistakable. Valorith lived on within the heart, and now, partially within Ethan himself. Rising to his feet, Ethan carried the dragon's heart to the cave entrance and looked out over the mountains. The army had gone, leaving only trampled vegetation and abandoned equipment to mark their passage. But Ethan knew they would return, perhaps with even greater numbers and more terrible weapons. A plan began to form in Ethan's mind. He couldn't bring Valorith back, but he could ensure his father's sacrifice wasn't in vain. He could protect what Valorith had died to preserve, not just Ethan's life, but the legacy of dragonkind itself. For the next several weeks, Ethan prepared. He studied the ancient scrolls in Valorith's collection with new understanding, absorbing knowledge that had previously been beyond his comprehension. The dragon essence within him made the arcane texts accessible, revealing secrets of dragon magic long forgotten by the world. When he felt ready, Ethan packed what he would need for a journey. The dragon's heart, too large and powerful to carry openly, he carefully wrapped and placed in a specially prepared backpack. It would never leave his possession again. With a last look at the cave that had been his home for 20 years, Ethan set out for the kingdom of Eldaria. Not as a supplicant or a fugitive, but as something the human world had never seen before, a dragon in human form, coming to claim his rightful place. The capital of Eldaria rose from the central plains like a monument to human ambition, high stone walls surrounding buildings of increasing height as they approached the royal castle at the city's heart. Banners bearing the kingdom's crest fluttered from every tower, and the streets teemed with people going about their daily business. At the castle gates, guards crossed their spears to bar his way. "State your business," one demanded, eyeing Ethan suspiciously. "I've come to speak with King Aldrich," Ethan replied calmly. "Tell him the dragon's son has arrived." The throne room stretched before them, a vast chamber with soaring ceilings supported by massive columns. At the far end, upon a dais of polished stone, sat King Aldrich, a man in his 60s with a face hardened by decades of rule. To his right, in a smaller but still ornate chair, sat Prince Gareth, his face bearing new scars from their battle. "You have requested an audience in a most unusual manner," the king said. "Speak your purpose, stranger." Ethan met the king's gaze steadily. "My name is Ethan Cole. For 20 years, I lived in the northern mountains with the dragon you know as Valorith. He found me as an abandoned infant and raised me as his son." "A fantastical tale," the king said. "Yet my son tells me he encountered a man with your description during the recent dragon hunt. A man who wielded magic no human should possess." "I did," Ethan confirmed, "to protect my father from those who sought to kill him without cause." "You still have not stated your purpose here," King Aldrich said. "If you've come seeking vengeance for our hunt, you face the entire might of Eldaria alone." Ethan shook his head. "I've not come for vengeance, your majesty. I've come to offer you something no king has possessed in 1,000 years, an alliance with dragonkind." Silence fell over the throne room, so complete that Ethan could hear the breathing of every person present. "Explain yourself," the king demanded after a long moment. "The dragon is dead or fled. What alliance could you possibly offer?" In response, Ethan removed the backpack and carefully unwrapped the dragon's heart. The crystal orb glowed softly in his hands, pulsing with gentle light that seemed to reach into the shadows of the vast chamber. "This is the dragon's heart," Ethan explained, his voice carrying easily in the hushed chamber. "It contains the essence and wisdom of dragons stretching back thousands of years. Valorith gave his life to merge his essence with it and save mine." He raised the orb higher, allowing its light to illuminate his features. "Through his sacrifice, I have become something neither fully human nor dragon, but a bridge between two worlds that have been divided by fear and misunderstanding for too long." Prince Gareth scoffed. "Parlor tricks and mysticism. Guards, seize him and that bauble." But King Aldrich raised his hand. "Wait." His eyes had not left the dragon's heart. "Let him finish." Ethan lowered the orb but kept it cradled in his hands. "For centuries, dragons have retreated from the world of men, their numbers dwindling as kingdoms like yours expanded. Now they stand at the brink of extinction, with perhaps a dozen left scattered across the world." He took a step forward, his golden eyes gleaming. "But it doesn't have to end this way. Dragons possess knowledge and magic humans have forgotten or never knew. They understand the deeper workings of the world, secrets that could transform your kingdom from merely powerful to truly magnificent." King Aldrich leaned forward. "And you would share these secrets?" "Why?" "Because Valorith believed that dragons and humans were not meant to be enemies," Ethan replied. "He saw potential in humanity, despite your flaws. He proved it by raising me, teaching me, loving me as his own. His final wish was for me to bridge the divide between our kinds." To demonstrate his point, Ethan placed the dragon's heart on the marble floor before him. Stepping back, he raised his hands and spoke a word in the dragon tongue. The orb's glow intensified, and from it rose a three-dimensional image of Eldaria, not as it was, but as it could be. Cities expanded and beautified, fields yielding harvests more bountiful than any in memory. New forms of architecture incorporating principles unknown to human engineers. The image shifted to show defenses against threats both natural and human, methods to divert floods and minimize the damage of earthquakes, fortifications designed with dragon insight that could withstand any siege, healing techniques that could save lives now lost to disease and injury. When the images finally faded, the throne room remained silent. Even Prince Gareth seemed momentarily bereft of arguments. King Aldrich's expression was unreadable as he studied Ethan. "And if I refuse your offer? If I order my guards to seize you and that artifact right now?" Ethan met his gaze steadily. "Then you would prove that Valorith's faith in humanity was misplaced. And you would fail. The dragon's heart responds only to one who shares dragon essence. In any other's hands, it is merely crystal." To demonstrate, he spoke another word in dragon tongue, and his appearance began to change. His skin hardened visibly into scales, his fingers extended into claws, and when he opened his mouth to speak again, flames flickered between sharpened teeth. I am the last of my kind, neither fully human nor dragon, but containing elements of both. Kill me, and the knowledge of dragons dies forever. Accept my offer, and your kingdom will enter a golden age unlike any in human history. King Aldrich was silent for a long moment, weighing his options. Finally, he nodded slowly. Your proposal intrigues me, Ethan Cole, but trust must be earned, not given blindly. He gestured to the dragon's heart. Keep your artifact. You will be given quarters in the castle and the opportunity to demonstrate the value of this dragon knowledge. Prove yourself useful, and we may reach the agreement you seek. Over the following months, Ethan proved his worth to the kingdom of Eldaria. He began with small demonstrations of dragon knowledge, showing royal architects how to strengthen buildings against earthquakes, teaching court physicians healing techniques unknown to human medicine, helping farmers improve crop yields through better understanding of soil and weather patterns. Each success earned him more trust and access to broader aspects of the kingdom's governance. King Aldrich, pragmatic and ambitious, recognized the advantage Ethan's knowledge gave Eldaria over neighboring kingdoms. Prince Gareth maintained his suspicion and hostility, but even he couldn't deny the benefits Ethan brought to the kingdom. When a drought threatened the summer harvest, Ethan's weatherworking magic brought gentle, sustained rainfall that saved the crops. Throughout it all, Ethan remained true to his purpose. In private meetings with the king, he advocated for the remaining dragons, negotiating protected territories where they could live undisturbed. He spoke of them not as beasts to be feared or hunted, but as intelligent beings worthy of respect. A year after Ethan's arrival at court, King Aldrich summoned him for a private audience. "You've proven your worth," the king said without preamble. "Eldaria prospers as never before, thanks to your dragon knowledge." The king fixed Ethan with a penetrating stare. "My son remains unconvinced of your loyalty. He sees you as a threat to the kingdom, perhaps even to the throne itself." "I have no interest in ruling," Ethan assured him. "So you say? But Gareth will be king after me, and if he continues to mistrust you, your position here will become untenable." The king leaned forward. "Unless you were bound to the royal family by ties stronger than mere service." Ethan's eyebrows rose as he realized what the king was suggesting. "Marriage." King Aldrich nodded. "My niece, Lady Chloe Walker. She's of suitable age and breeding. As her husband, you would become part of the royal family, still subject to the crown, but protected by blood ties that even Gareth would hesitate to break." "Has Lady Chloe been consulted about this arrangement?" he asked carefully. The king's lips twitched in what might have been amusement. "She suggested it." The royal gardens were a marvel of landscape design, with winding paths through flower beds, ornamental trees, and tranquil pools. Ethan found Lady Chloe sitting on a stone bench beside a fountain, reading a leather-bound volume that she closed as he approached. She was not conventionally beautiful by noble standards, but there was an intelligence in her dark eyes that Ethan had always found appealing. "Lady Chloe," Ethan greeted her with a bow. "I thought it a practical solution to several problems at once," she said directly when he mentioned the marriage proposal, "including Prince Gareth's continued distrust." She nodded. "My cousin is traditional in his thinking. He values family above all else. As my husband, you would be family. May I ask why you would consider marriage to someone like me?" Ethan asked. "Surely there are more advantageous matches for a lady of your station." Chloe's lips curved in a small smile. "I've spent my life studying history, science, philosophy, whatever knowledge I could access. But in 1 year, you've brought more new ideas and information to this kingdom than all our scholars combined have discovered in a century." Her eyes shone with genuine enthusiasm. "I want to be part of that. I want to learn what you know, to help preserve and spread the dragon knowledge you're bringing into our world." Reaching into his ever-present pack, he carefully withdrew the dragon's heart. In the natural light of the garden, its gentle glow was barely visible, but Chloe's sharp intake of breath told him she perceived something of its power. This contains the essence of Valorith, the dragon who raised me, along with the accumulated knowledge and magic of dragons going back thousands of years, Ethan explained. Through it, I am connected to him still. If you marry me, you marry this legacy as well. Rather than fear or revulsion, Chloe's face showed only wonder. Hesitantly, she reached toward the orb. May I? Ethan nodded, and she placed her fingertips gently against the crystal surface. It's warm, she whispered, and I feel something, like standing at the edge of a vast library, knowing all knowledge is just beyond your reach. That's an apt description, Ethan said, impressed by her perception. Few humans would sense even that much. I accept your proposal, Lady Chloe, he said formally. If you'll have me as your husband, I would be honored to join my path with yours. The royal wedding took place 3 months later, a grand affair that served both as a celebration and as a political statement. By marrying his niece to the dragon's son, King Aldrich publicly embraced the new relationship between Eldaria and dragonkind. Prince Gareth attended the ceremony with rigid formality, his face a mask of polite indifference. Later, as Ethan and his new wife danced among the other nobles, the prince approached them. You've won a considerable victory today, he said to Ethan. My father's favor, a place in the royal family, the official protection of your kindred. I didn't approach this as a battle to be won, Ethan said. Didn't you? Gareth's smile didn't reach his eyes. You've achieved in 1 year what armies of your kind couldn't accomplish in centuries. You've turned a kingdom of dragon hunters into dragon protectors. The prince studied him for a long moment, then nodded slightly. To new beginnings, then. May they lead where we all hope. And so began a new chapter in the relationship between humans and dragons. From their position at court, Ethan and Chloe worked to spread dragon knowledge throughout Eldaria and, gradually, to neighboring kingdoms. They established a school where selected students could learn the basics of dragon lore, history, and magic, ensuring the knowledge wouldn't die with Ethan. As King Aldrich aged and Prince Gareth took on more responsibilities, the prince's attitude toward Ethan evolved from suspicion to grudging respect. He never became a friend, but he recognized the advantages Ethan's knowledge brought to the kingdom he would one day rule. 3 years after their wedding, Chloe gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl with their mother's dark hair and their father's golden eyes. From birth, the children showed signs of their mixed heritage, with unusual strength and intelligence, and an innate connection to the dragon's heart. Through these children, neither fully human nor dragon, but something new and wonderful, Ethan saw the future Valorith had sacrificed himself to create. A future where the wisdom of dragons would not be lost, but would evolve and grow within humanity itself. On the twins' 5th birthday, Ethan took his family to the mountains where he had grown up. The cave remained as he had left it, untouched by time or human interference. As dusk fell, they stood together at the cave entrance, watching the sunset paint the sky in colors no human artist could capture. Was this what you imagined? Chloe asked softly, her hand finding Ethan's. When you first came to court with the dragon's heart. Ethan looked at his children, now sitting cross-legged nearby, listening with rapt attention as their mother told them stories of their grandfather Valorith. In their faces, he saw the future, human and dragon united not in conflict, but in harmony. No, he admitted. I hope to preserve dragon knowledge and protect the few dragons remaining. I never imagined all this. Chloe smiled. Valorith would be proud. As if in response to his name, the dragon's heart, which Ethan had placed on a stone pedestal near the cave entrance, pulsed with golden light. Within its depths, something moved, an impression of great wings, ancient eyes, and eternal wisdom. In that moment, Ethan knew with certainty that Valorith lived on, not just in memory or in the knowledge he had preserved, but in the new world they were building together. A world where humans no longer hunted dragons, and dragons no longer feared humans. A world where his children and their descendants would carry forward the best of both races. The dragon who had raised a human child was gone, but his legacy roared on through the child who had become a bridge between worlds. And that was the end of the story. If you listened all the way to here, don't forget to leave feedback about what you thought of the story in the comments, whether positive or negative. Your feedback helps us improve. Also, leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. And I'll leave here on the screen another video that I'm sure you'll like. Big hug, and see you in the next story.